All right, everyone, we have another major pro-gun win. We're really racking up those wins lately, other than the NFA-derived ATF decision with regards to pistol braces. We'll see exactly what happens with that because it's so convoluted and meaningless that it doesn't even make any sense. Oh, down in Oklahoma, a district judge named Wyrick has given the go-ahead to say, yes, indeed, it is unconstitutional to deprive the Second Amendment from people for smoking marijuana. This is something that's being pushed in a bunch of states. I'll tell you why. What you do is you give people their weed. You get them good and, hooted up. You give them their medical marijuana or decriminalize pot. You say, yeah, you can grow some pot plants on your property, but you can also own guns. You can either smoke it and toke it, or you can have firearms. Now, it never really made constitutional sense within the framework of the use of substances because it is perfectly legal to be completely drunk off your ass and own a gun. You can't be drunk on your ass at the range. You can't be drunk off your ass just randomly firing on your own property. Reckless endangerment, negligent homicide could apply depending on where the bullet goes. But you are allowed to be a drinker and simultaneously own and bear arms. The idea that marijuana is uniquely incapacitating, therefore, didn't make sense anyway. And this judge is using the Bruen decision and saying there is no long-standing history in the United States of narcotics or anything like that being used as an impetus to remove someone's Second Amendment rights. The drug is, by the way, still illegal in the state of Oklahoma. Although I think they have medical, but they haven't decriminalized it or anything like that, although they should. When you get a judge from, a fairly traditionalistic conservative state where it's still illegal saying, yeah, this alone can't let you take someone's guns away. I'm sorry, but it's a Bruen supersedes. That's a pretty damn good indicator of where that particular debate is going now, isn't it? The flip side, if you were to say, yeah, it's okay for the cops to come in and confiscate your firearms because you have a pot plant out back. The second thing there would be that a blue state could say, oh, well, what about people who drink? They're incapacitated too. Unless you're a teetotaler, you're not allowed to exercise your constitutional rights either. See, the slippery slope in the other direction is so dangerous that the argument can't really be taken seriously. I applaud the judge. It's the right decision. Now it goes to the higher court level. I think it doesn't go to SCOTUS right away. There will presumptively be appeal. Because the whole goal is to get people doped up and then to take their guns away. Well, we'll give them all sorts of other stuff, but it'll all be conditional on them giving away a bunch of their rights. By the way, this happens in other realms too. It's not just firearms. It's just the later potato as far as this particular anti-constitutional push goes. And that's what it is. It's an attempt to denigrate the national liberty and the individual liberty of people in the United States because they're conceived of as uniquely dangerous because they have a shit ton of guns. That's what they're worried about. They're not worried about some population that's no guns mode because if they overthrow the government, you can put a pawn government in. People can't do as much damage. If the population is actually capable of defending its homeland, inevitably they're less globalistic because it's harder to convince them that they're unsafe. Because Cletus out there happens to have 10 fucking hunting rifles. And even Malcolm in the inner city has his Glock. So if everyone's armed all the time, they feel a little bit less scared. They're more likely to go hyper-nationalist if there's a terrorist attack as opposed to cowering in their homes. They're more likely to go chamber up and then turn on the news and get themselves all in a tizzy or something like that. Trust me, it was a thing after 9/11. By the way, the U.S. government at the time encouraged you to seal up your windows and doors with tape to protect against bioweapons attacks. Problem being you could suffocate yourself, but Ashcroft was not necessarily known for his scientific chops. So yes, marijuana users, you can actually exercise your Second Amendment rights. Another thing that's pointed out here, and that was very interesting, and this leads into a separate case that's actually ongoing, at the felony level no less, was that marijuana didn't pose a specific, it didn't create a specifically harmful sort of situation. So the fact that you've smoked weed, it's not a violent crime, although it is a crime. It doesn't externally impact anything. You happen to be high, you're breaking the law, but it doesn't make you break a window. It doesn't damage property. I mean, if you're a renter, I suppose you could construe it that way. Wait till they apply that to cigarettes or to wine stains, by the way. It doesn't cause harm to anyone. You're sitting there smoking a joint on your porch. Nobody else is troubled by this. If you extend that basic premise further, you could argue, and it is being legally argued now, that nonviolent felons at least should also have their Second Amendment rights upheld. I agree with that. Just because somebody committed tax fraud or larceny or something like that does not make them a violent person. The founders would have found it specifically to be this. Here's how you can remove a gun from a person. Number one, they're not part of the militia. They're under 18. Because they're not able to vote, they're not a full member of the militia, they may bear arms at the behest of someone else who owns them. They may utilize arms, they may defend themselves, but they cannot purchase a weapon. They cannot manufacture a weapon. Not a member of the militia, it's not important for them to do so, unless you intend to move towards using child soldiers. By the way, when liberals push for lowering the voting age to 16, you're effectively attempting to absorb 16 and 17-year-olds into the militia, guaranteeing them the ability to own firearms as well. Just so that you're aware of where that would be going. Be interesting for age of consent laws as well, but the liberals haven't fully thought this through, or maybe they have. Maybe that's the whole fucking point. The fact is this. Nonviolent felons wouldn't fall under that umbrella. The second group would be people who are currently incarcerated. Okay, you can't give out guns on the prison yard. That's fine. And number three, people who are lunatics. Now, a violent lunatic, as the founders would have suggested, doesn't mean mentally ill in the modern sense. Depression, seasonal affective. You would have to be specifically a violent individual, and that violence is being driven by some pathology. Some mental pathology as they would have understood it literally at the end of the 1700s. This is prior to the rise of organic medicine. If you use that framework, that would be the Bruen-linked tradition of U.S. gun control. You can take guns away from violent felons, or specifically violent psychotic individuals. You can prevent minors from at least purchasing guns. You can't stop them from necessarily using them, and in many cases even carrying them. Their parents can take them out plinking, etc. There's nothing the state can do about that. And that's basically it. Or people who are incarcerated. And that's all. The fact that they smoke weed does not convert them into a violent felon. It doesn't decommission them from the militia. If they're smoking weed on the job when they're mustered, it might be a problem. Although I have a feeling that probably George Washington would disagree with that and say, this stuff's pretty good, actually. Where were we marching to again? I'm hungry. Where's the fucking salt pork? Wouldn't that be funny? Maybe they got the drunchies. One too many ales. Apparently they drank very, very heavily. We should look into Andrew Jackson's drinking parties and some of the receipts that they have from those. Pretty goddamn legendary, just to be clear. Surprised the dude managed to survive to old age long enough for his teeth to fall out. Same with most of the other people that were there in the early days of the Republic. It doesn't do that, and it doesn't turn you into a violent criminal lunatic. So it can't be used as a reason to take someone's guns away. They're still part of the militia, they're still of age, they're still of sound mind, although they may be inebriated at the time. They smoke weed and shoot someone, that's a problem. But it's no different than if they get drunk, they get into a fight with their neighbor and they blow their head off. So, yeah, again, long-standing American tradition of something that was only incepted in the last half decade. That's about all. Peace out.